Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Creative Connections webinar. Today, we are thrilled to have with us Mr. Thomas Reedit from the Nirrnjeri and the Aranda peoples. Exploring the topic, authentic and engaging artist-led education programs. My name is Ian R.T. Collis. I'm a member of the Darabulap clan of the Gundungurra people and the grandson, the very proud grandson of the late Auntie Dawn Collis. Today I am streaming to you from my cultural country, the Gundungurra, which my peoples share the Blue Mountains with the Darug. The Blue Mountains is the World Heritage listed area. As a coexisting person of the oldest surviving cultures in the world, indeed the known universe, I am a result of this country's dreaming. From where you are calling in from today, and from where I am calling in from today, the diversity of our peoples have existed since time immortal, since the never never. Just as my country is unique to its own environment, so too are the countries that you are streaming in from today. My country's biodiversity, its rhythm, its pulse, its story, its language, its song, its dance, its living totemic story. The memory that comes from the story comes from this country. This has critically informed my cultural and human development and informs everything that I do as an Aboriginal queer man today. In paying respect to country, I describe it. It has long mountain ranges, cliff faces, with mist that rises out of it every morning. Made blue by the diversity of eucalyptus plants. I too pay my unstoppable respect to the countries where you are streaming in from today. If you would like, please take the opportunity to share in the chat feature, which is just below the bottom of the screen, the countries in which you are streaming in from. We have Ghana country, we have the Wiradjuri, Darug. So wonderful to have you all here today. We have Noongar, Whadjuk. Thank you all for being here. Today we have Thomas from the Nirrnjeri and Aranda people, who is the educational officer for Tahani at the Art Gallery of South Australia. This webinar sets out to explore how can artists and organisations develop authentic artist-led education programs for children and our young adults. Tom will unpack how educators and organisations can create meaningful engagement for artist-led education programs and engagement with the diversity of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultural practitioners, arts workers, and artists, and the collections that they involve themselves within. Thomas has had a career that has seen him follow his passion in drawing. He's informed from his cultural and human development. He is a graduate of the Adelaide Central School of Art, completing his associate degree and Bachelor of Visual Arts degree. He is a respected member of his peoples. Thomas, I hand it over to you. Take it away, my brother.
Thank you so much, Ian. I really appreciate that introduction. That was really, really lovely. And thank you so much to the Australian Council of the Arts for having me today. So I'm just going to share my screen with you all. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about authentic and engaging artist-led education programs. So everything that I'm going to be talking about is part of what we do at the Art Gallery South Australia in my education team. I don't run the education team, but I'm lucky to be part of this incredible team that we have of 4 people. So my name's Thomas Fredette. Again, I'm Ngarrindjeri and Arrernte, proud man. And I'm ready to take you guys through what we've got on today. So firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the land of the Kaurna people. So Agsa Kaurna Yatunga Yuandi, which means Agsa stands on Kaurna land. It's an incredible, incredible country that we have here. The Kaurna people are incredible people, as are all Aboriginal people. It's such a beautiful country, wide, vast plains of land, and then it starts to sort of meet the coast, and then you get this incredible ocean and landscape of really small sand hills that sort of lead for kilometres, and then it gets to sort of cliffs, which is really, really incredible. So I'm just going to start off with a little bit of a warm-up. This warm-up is an activity that we would run at the gallery. So I'm just going to launch straight into it with you guys. And for this little section, I'd love for you to use the chat section. So normally you'd have a circle of students and go around one by one, and sort of everybody just says the first word that comes to their mind when they look at an artwork. So I want you guys to do that for me. So the first work I'm going to pop up is this one. So I'm going to give you guys about a minute just to write your responses in the chat section, and it'd be great to read some of those out. So the first word that comes to your mind. Strength from Elizabeth. Thank you so much for joining, Elizabeth. It's one of my closest friends. Energy. Solidarity. Let's keep reading these. Meeting place. Intersection. Oh, that's a great one. Community. Explosive. Beautiful. Connection. Centeredness. Passion. Great. The word that I always think of, or the words that I always think of, are shadows or dance or dancing, because of the way that the light sort of ricochets the shadows off of the wall. And there's almost this dancing, this relationship happening with the shadows and the light, which is really incredible. So we'll move to the next one. Okay, I'll give you a couple of minutes to jump into the chat there and write your response to this one. I look at this work and I think calming. Land, serenity, country, space. Antarctica does have that colour palette to it, doesn't it? Passage, water, ocean waves. Patchwork, that's a great one. Feeling, connection. I think there is this connection with a lot of, or I would argue all of Aboriginal art. There's this connection that is reoccurring through all the different sort of materials and methods that you'll see a few of them today. Great, so I think we might move on. So as Ian was saying earlier, my role is the education officer for Tarnanthi. And those of you that don't know what Tarnanthi is our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander artists exhibition, festival, and it happens every single year from October to January. And it's just an incredible experience to come along and view all of these different contemporary artists that are working in so many different mediums. And the word Tarnanthi is actually a Kaurna word, which means to come forth or to emerge, sort of like the sun when it first rises, or a seed when it first sprouts. Now we've got a couple of videos here, but I think we'll pop them into the chat for you guys to have a look at after this talk. So this video here is just from one of the openings. There's some beautiful, beautiful music and it just shows the energy and the vibrance that Tarnanthi has to offer. So you can click on those links afterwards and have a look at those in your own time. But this video in particular is very special because it shows where it all starts. So when the artworks come into the gallery, when the artists create the artworks, that's when the energy is created. And that's where the learning begins. So just as I said there, where it all begins, the artist as the starting point. So really everything we do in ACE education, we think about the artist as the primary source of that learning. And the main reason for this is it's the most authentic way to experience education, in our opinions. We think if you can get an artist into your classroom or to engage with your class, especially nowadays via Zoom or something similar, then you're getting that information directly from the artist. You're getting that story directly from the artist. And that's where the authenticity in that learning really comes through and shines. And so where it all started for us was a workshop called Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Art in the Classroom. And we didn't know how popular this program would be. And we just launched it. We launched straight into it and we ran 2 days of it a couple of years ago. And we ended up getting 100 educators for each one, which was a big surprise. So it meant, that people were very interested to learn how do they tackle Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and cultures in their classroom in an appropriate way. And I'll just flick through a couple of images here from the workshops. So here you can see artist Jacob Bowen working with the group here. These workshops became so important to us, and they are such a huge part of what we do now. And it's so obvious why, because our educators come along and they hear from the artists, they hear from our team, they hear from our assistant director, Lisa Slade, they hear from our curator of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Art, Nikki Compston. She's also the Tarnanthi Festival Director. And hearing from all these different people makes teachers feel, in a way, really comforted, really empowered to be able to tackle these sorts of themes and stories in their classroom in a really authentic way. You're going to get really sick of me saying the word authentic, because that's really the whole point of this. But that's what I'm going to keep sort of honing in on. Here's a couple of teachers here having fun at Jacob's workshop. Now, responding and unpacking an artist's work authentically. So when you say this, some people might not know where to start, and that's completely okay. Myself as an artist as well, I find these resources very, very helpful to unpack my own work and to unpack my own thoughts and thinking around the ideas that I might have. So I hope you guys can get a lot out of it too. So what I'm going to do for you is just run through a little case study that we did last year. We created a space called The Studio. The Studio happens with every exhibition at the gallery, and it's a place where children and families and students can come in and enjoy an activity or two. And the activity, or the studio theme for the last one, was the Yirrkala Print Studio. And so here we've got Yolngu artist Nongana Marawili, who is an incredible artist, and she paints these beautiful bark paintings. And not only does she use natural ochres like most bark painters, she actually has something that's quite characteristic to her in practice, which is actually reusing printer cartridges. So, the printer cartridges you have to get replaced basically every month. You get the magenta ones. And so Nongana grabs these magenta ones that are out, actually left on the land, and she breaks them open and mixes them with her natural ochres. So like the white clay, that sort of stuff, and mixes it together to get these beautiful different sort of contrasts and tones of magenta, which is just absolutely stunning. If you've seen her work in real life, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I'll just go through a couple of them here. You can see the magenta just stands out so much because magenta is actually an artificial pigment. So it's not a real color technically, which is quite interesting. And so to mix that with, you know, something artificial with something completely natural and put them together creates this incredibly vibrant arts practice, which, you know, I don't even have to talk about it. I'm sure you guys are sitting there looking at this thinking, that's pretty good. And so you can see just a few of the different shades. These are just details of some of her works, but there's just this beautiful, beautiful pigment. And so when I started looking at Nongina's work, I was just overwhelmed with the beauty of the bark paintings. But then I was really surprised to find out that she was a printmaker also. And she was the first printmaker to work in the Yirrkala print space, which I thought was, you know, a very, very beautiful and incredible thing. I wanted to be able to, I guess, pay homage to that somehow in the studio space. And the studio space, you know, being the Yirrkala print space, there's all these young artists that are in the space at the moment. And so I worked with the young artists and the curators there to put together the space. I really thought, well, we should pay homage to Nongina as well because she was the first person in that space. And she had paintings downstairs as well, so it all sort of made sense. So this is one of her prints here, this beautiful print called Gapu. Now, when we start unpacking artist works at Agster Education, we use this flowchart. This is one of our resources that we've developed. And it's quite a simple flowchart, really, but it's a really, really simple scaffold of how to unpack an artist's work. You can use this for absolutely any artist or any sort of artwork. And basically, it goes like this. So who is the group of artists or artists? Nongina Marawili. What are the main ideas, themes, or concepts in the artist's work? Found materials and colour, and documenting weather conditions. How does this relate to the world of my students? That for me is the key question, because that takes everything that you're learning about, that whole education around this artist's work, turns it around and puts it back on you and your students. So it makes you think, oh, how does it relate to me? And the students might think, how does it relate to me and, you know, my friends? And so then you would answer with printmaking and painting, with waste and climate change. So these are just some of the themes that are sort of broken down out of Nongina's work that do relate to everybody in a different way. And what are some of the ways students could respond to these issues without creating copies of the artist's work? By creating a stencil to explore the fundamentals of printmaking, reuse found materials to create a sculpture and create a drawing with found materials, document the weather in your area through photography, compare the photos over time. So through that process, what we've done just there is looked at an artist, looked at the beautiful work on the wall, and then we've broken it down and sort of pulled apart those ideas and key concepts and themes, and then made it relevant to us, to, you know, our climate in South Australia, first of all, is completely different. So, you know, it's about the students being able to find their own voice in that artist's work, I think. And so here is one of the examples. So this was the activity in the studio, and it ended up being the stenciling activity. We thought that was a really nice activity. The reason why stenciling was so nice is because it explores all of those fundamentals of printmaking, which are repetition, design, pattern making, colour, all of those sorts of things. And except it's a lot more simpler than printmaking, which is really great for a kid's space. But this meant that, you know, anybody could come in here and respond to Nongina's work and experience this in their own meaningful way. So people were thinking about the sorts of forms and shapes that they like, that they enjoy. And, they were creating those and then sort of repeating them using different colors. And then they create something that is an expression of their own self. It's not about copying the artist's work directly. It's about finding that expression of their own self. And here's just another example. So this is the early years version of the activity, which was just a little bit more simpler. So they had sort of little strips of paper that you could fold in half, and they'd cut little shapes out of them. So even though they were just little shapes and quite basic, you can see that with repetition and layering and pattern making, that ended up being quite effective. The ended up being the space. So you can see on the back window there's Nongina's print. That was the massive vinyl on the front. That print was actually on display at the front of the studio as well. The Yirrkala print artists, who are the younger artists in there at the moment, they curated their own little exhibition for the back wall, which was really, really cool. And part of what they curated, they selected some of Nongina's works as well. So they wanted to pay homage to her too, which was really beautiful. Here's some of the young artists posing quite uniquely, which is awesome. And the good thing about this studio as well was that Yolngu language was displayed too. And English was the second language. So, there's that, the key language is first. Putting the artist first means putting their language group first and putting their culture first. Now, I just popped this in here to remind myself that if you have any questions as we're going along, to put them in the chat so we can sort of unpack them together towards the end. I've just noticed the time, so I'm going to start scooting along a little bit. So this case study here is just another extension of unpacking artists' artworks. So this case study here is on the Arab Arts Collaborative. And this video here you can watch afterwards. But basically, the Arab Arts Collaborative is this incredible group of collaborative artists working on Arab Darnley Island. They're Torres Strait Islander artists. And they create these incredible, ginormous, and small sculptures too. But they're all made from ghost nets. And if you don't know what a ghost net is, this is an interesting topic to research yourself as well, because they drag these giant fishing nets out of the oceans that wash up on their coastline, and they cause so much damage. These nets can be from 2 kilometers to 12 kilometers long, and they're just dropped in the ocean after fishermen have used them. And they take about, I guess, 100 and something years to actually start deteriorating. So the amount of damage that does to our ocean life is actually, beyond all comprehension. And so what these artists do is pull these nets out of the ocean, save any of the injured animals that are in the nets, and then they pull the nets apart using sort of some traditional weaving techniques and some contemporary weaving techniques to pull apart this netting, and it sort of frays, and then they use that as their material to create these beautiful animals. So you look at this artwork, I'll just quickly scoot down here. So on the left, you can see the studio with their artworks everywhere. You can see those corals, the fish. It's all very beautiful artwork, and you're lured in and you look at it and you're like, wow, it's just so magnificent. But there's actually this really dark sort of story behind the netting, which is really good, because what they're doing through creating their work is creating awareness. They're raising awareness for, the sustainability of their area, the damage that these materials have, and those sorts of issues. So what we've got here is an article that's actually in one of our books, which I'm going to talk about soon. And this was one of our teachers, Kate Wright, South Australian educator. She is incredible. Brought her students into the Tarnandy studio and seen these works. And so they spent a couple of terms responding to these works in heaps of different ways, many different ways, without copying the artist's work. So you can see on the right side here, that there's some fish that have been stitched together with paper and plastics. There's some incredible laser cut sort of jewellery and some paper and prints as well. And they actually made the paper themselves. So they were looking at issues of sustainability, what that means for the students here in South Australia. The issues we have here in South Australia, one of the biggest ones is plastic bags. So they started off with observational drawings of plastic bags. They did a little fashion show. And you can see some of these beautiful works on the side. This totem pole here, all the students got together and made key elements to each totem. And not one student made a full totem, but they're all separate students making little ones and putting together, which is really nice because it speaks to that collaborative nature of the work. Okay, and some of our resources. So you can head over to our website at any time. We have a resources page under education, which we have probably over 30 odd Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander art resources at the moment, which is really, really awesome. And these resources will just help you unpack the work further, you know. And the reason I keep saying this is the reason why we do it is because if you're not engaging with artists authentically, then you're missing out on a huge, huge piece of learning, a huge piece of education. We're the longest living nation, you know, with different sort of ways of education. We've got all sorts of different ways of learning. And I think to engage with the art in an authentic way is such a great opportunity for educators to feel empowered and to feel like, you know what, I can do this. It's quite simple. And so we ended up releasing a book based on these workshops. So we have a publication called Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Art in the Classroom. You can purchase this book through our website as well. But this book basically encapsulates everything I've been talking about. It encapsulates everything we've done in the workshops. And these are just a couple of key highlights in the book. So I'll just scroll through quickly. And there's another example of unpacking a work of art with the flowchart. And then it even shows you the step-by-step of how to unpack that activity. Engaging with your community, hugely important part. One of the most important things about working with artists is that, you know, it all starts in the gallery's collection, but also then what happens when you want to work with a local artist? That's one of the most important things you can do as well, because it gives local artists the opportunity to have a voice in the classroom as well. But also you get to see the incredible local artists that are working in your area. There's so many all over the country. So there's so many different ways you can engage with artists, both locally and nationally now, you know, especially with Zoom and all of those sorts of resources. And I just wanted to chuck this in here as well, because this is a nice, happy picture of some of our teachers that did a collaborative exercise with artist Grace Lillian Lee. And she actually made them do a musical chairs activity, which was really, really cool. And basically she would change the music every 1 minute, sort of every minute. And then they would respond with mark making colours, how that music made them feel. And then she'd change it and they'd all swap places and they'd all be dancing the whole time. It was really, really cool. And then at the end, we cut all the pieces into sort of these tiny little pieces that they could take home with them. And even if they couldn't see where they'd worked on there, they knew they'd worked on that bit. It was just about the collaborative nature of the activity, which is really beautiful. And one of our other resources, the Essential Introduction to Aboriginal Art, 25 Facts. I'll quickly zoom past this because I think I'm going over time. So Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples are diverse and their art is too, which is a very obvious one. This video will be available to you afterwards as well. You get to hear from the Urengi Altair artists. What materials do Aboriginal artists use? Every single material is the answer. There's so many different artists working in so many different materials, medias, methods. It's incredible. You know, contemporary artist Rico Rennie here working in a video piece that he made in a car that he painted, Esme Timbery, recreating these buildings with shells, just incredible. But some of these are really obvious things, and so is this. Do all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander artists use dots? And the answer is no. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander art is so diverse, and to think that Aboriginal art was just dot painting is such a thing of the future. If you did sort of think that, then you'd be missing out on a whole world of opportunities for you and your students. So it's really important to engage with cultural institutions in your area, and to engage with their collections, to look at the vastness of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander art, because it's just endless. The materials are endless and the learning is endless. You can learn from all of these different materials, all of these different stories. There's so much content. And then I've just got a few different examples here for you to show you how vast the range is. We got painting, we got installation, weaving, all sorts of different stuff. Projection, Larrakitch, incredible paintings here. And these beautiful sculptures. There is so many, and this is just in one of our exhibitions. So if you were to think about the collections in every art gallery across Australia, there's just so many different types of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander art. These beautiful glass blown works by Yoni Scarce, incredible. And obviously, why engage with Aboriginal art with your students? Because it's part of the curriculum, and this is the best and easiest and funnest way to do it. It's very, very simple to engage with Aboriginal histories and cultures when you've got these incredible contemporary artists working across all these different platforms. All of your students will be engaged, and I'm sure you'll find something for yourself too. So on that note, I'll end it there. I think I've gone a little bit over time, but thank you all so much. I hope you enjoyed it. And my contact details are here as well, but hopefully we've got a couple of questions in the chat that we can go through. But thank you again so much.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I was here laughing away when you said blackfellas use everything. It's so true.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the other day, our just as our countries are unique, so too is our way that we engage with country and then use it to create a cultural and artistic expression of one's being, and knowing of oneself within their language group, if you will.
Exactly.
I have a question. When did your love of culture and education come from? Like, when did it start?
Sure. So it actually started after high school when I went to art school. My love of culture was always there, but as a child growing up, I felt a little bit disconnected to my culture, and I didn't learn anywhere near enough. And I graduated high school in 2010, and I didn't learn anything about our culture. That wasn't that long ago, which is the incredible part. So to be part of a team that actually changes the way that our culture is seen in schools and education is a really incredible thing for me. But yeah, in art school, I ended up learning about, I went through Aboriginal studies, and that was one of the best things I've ever done. It was just so eye-opening, and it was like, I'd just seen everything that has been there my whole life. But yeah, it's just such a beautiful thing. There's so much in our culture, absolutely so much. It's endless, and just the opportunity to be able to engage with that is a really special thing.
Agreed. And we're very lucky that our ancestors have fought for us to have it in our existence.
Exactly.
I have a question to dovetail on that. With your experiences in the Western education framework of transactional-based learning, and now more recently, your experiences of multicultural and multi-intellectual ways of experiencing art that we've noticed through your Arab project that you've been involved in, your Yerakala through Yongo. How have you noticed a shift in the developmental aspects of the students' learning when engaging intellectually and experientially with country and with weaving and with song and story and community and all of those multifacets that make the oldest living education system such a unique way of doing culture?
For sure. So I think the best part of it is, you know, it's not this, as we spoke about the other day, it's not this sort of yes and no education, you know, this is right, this is wrong. It's about learning all these different multifaceted things and then being able to see what relates to you, what's your story, where is your part in this. And so learning all these different things and feeling comfortable across that, it creates a space for you to feel safe and basically just express yourself. I think it's, you know, I think students feel safer when they feel like they have a voice and they're learning multiple different things and they're investigating those things. It's not so much about this is this and this is this. It's about, well, what can I get from this? Or, you know, what can I learn from this? And so it's about that experience, I guess. And so I think that's probably the most beautiful thing. It's, you know, it's almost like this confidence-based learning. It's helps students just feel safe and in a way able to express themselves in a more meaningful sort of way.
I've got a question. How have you seen the teachers, when you talk about this authentic based education, which of course is the oldest education systems in the world, how have you seen the teachers transform with their ability to teach this content to the students with these resources?
Massively. We've seen a massive shift in just the educators that we work with here in South Australia. So, you know, to think what it can do on a national scale is just incredible. But, you know, we get teachers coming in and every single workshop we run, at the end of it, you know, we always feel like, that, you know, that teacher made us feel great because they were just like, oh, that's what you mean, you know, that's how it's done, sort of thing. But I think once you show them how you can do it so simply, then that confidence, that empowerment is sort of instilled in them. And, you know, they're just like, oh, wow, this is so vast now. Now that I've learned sort of the tools and techniques to be able to unpack that. Yeah, and the teachers just keep coming back and we keep hearing incredible stories. They'll send us in awesome little exhibitions that their students have done based on Aboriginal artists that they've seen in the gallery. And they would have even created some activities that we didn't teach them. And it's just great. I think it's that attitude, you know, teachers who come in and want to learn, they're the teachers that thrive anyway, because they're the ones that are there. They're at the workshops. They want to develop their practice. They want to push that to the next level. Yeah, so I think it's always good news stories. There's all these teachers always coming back and constantly giving us this great feedback. But the best feedback is to know that they're loving it and absolutely enjoying it and learning new things from our culture, which is awesome.
What I've learned, and we had a yarn about the other day, is the reciprocal notion of the teacher creating curiosity in the candidate, and as a result, the candidate teaching the teacher. And it's a reciprocality. Our elders talk about this.
Yeah.
With that, we've got a wonderful question that's come on through that takes us back to the student. How do you allow for the student-led learning in this type of authentic-based instruction?
I think
interesting question.
It is an interesting question, and I think through striking curiosity, one of my colleagues, Kylie Neagles, created these incredible resources called curiosity cards, which is something we use at the gallery as well. And they're just these little cards with these tiny prompts to get students sort of thinking and engaged with works of art. And I think curiosity is probably the best way to it, because if they're curious, then they're engaged. And then if they're engaged, you know, they're curious to find out more. So it's sort of this ongoing thing. I'm not sure if that really answers the question, but I think that's sort of the way I see it. I think if the teacher gives them the opportunity to have that curiosity, either in the gallery space or back in the classroom with a local artist or through a PowerPoint, then they open the gates for that sort of student-based learning, you know, where the student can just tackle that from there on. And that's just, I think, based out of pure interest and engagement.
We were talking about that the other day. I mean, our elders and Dr. Janara Garangrang from the Waka Waka Woolly Woolly people in a Creative Connections webinar several weeks ago was talking about how elders go in and they see what works with that person and they guide it out. There's a sense of guiding that knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that strength, isn't it? It's looking at that student's strengths and that their key interests and what makes their eyes sparkle. You know, you can see when somebody's interested in something, you know, and then pursuing that, I think, seeing their strengths, engaging that.
I've got another question here that sort of connects with how does one go to the authenticity, or what Dr. Terry Jenke talked about the other week. How does one, as you were talking about, as echoing in through your conversation, go to the lived experience, go to the people. Don't just read it in a book. This question is a wonderful question. It's beautiful. It's how can we connect with Indigenous artists and conduct a project in a sensitive way, sensitive to culture and to the artists?
For sure. I think that's a really nice question and a really simple one too. I think just jump onto Instagram or get a few websites from your local artists and have that conversation. You know, speaking as an artist myself, I'm always open to having these sorts of conversations. I know a couple of my awesome artist friends are in this chat right now, who are more than happy to have those sorts of chats. I think engage with the artist and just go for it from there, because 9 times out of 10, that artist is going to want to work with you and going to want to help you and your students.
Wonderful. We have another question that's come on through. They're all coming on through now. It's fabulous. Good on you, Mum. Thomas and I.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Do you have any advice for how people respond to teachers who ask the question, can I teach Aboriginal art? Now, you talked about this briefly in the notion of not replication, but developing a sense of curiosity in oneself and or the candidate, and drawing out those experiences from their experience within their curiosity of country. Can you talk about how does the question is, how do you advise how people respond to teachers who ask the question, how can I teach Aboriginal art?
For sure. We've had a few of those at the gallery as well. And I think teachers who ask that question, you know, even if they're asking questions that may seem somewhat inappropriate sometimes, I think they want to better their practice. They're asking the question. So I think that's already the best thing, because, you know, they're wanting to hear how they can sort of change what they're thinking or feeling. But basically, I think, you know, direct them to some resources, direct them to local resources, local to your country, or you can take some of our resources and, you know, twist them in your own way. But I think the most important thing is you're not teaching Aboriginal art. You're teaching Aboriginal histories and cultures. You know, that's what the curriculum says, and that is your job to do that. And it is a hard job as well. And, you know, especially when you're teaching 6 other subjects as well, probably. But we're just showing you a way that you can do that using...
And providing resources.
Exactly, yeah. So, you know, using local resources to do that. So, you know, when somebody asks that, you just say, no, you're not teaching Aboriginal art, you know, not unless there's an Aboriginal artist in there teaching you guys something. That you're, you know, you're addressing those histories and cultures. You're you know, shining the spotlight on that culture. You're, you know, you're reteaching that history how it should be taught, I think, by using those artists and those artworks, but also making it relevant to your students. That's the main part for us is, you know, it's, you know, enough to look at the work, but you've got to look at the work and unpack those themes and ideas and make it about your students, I think, because that's where the learning happens.
Agreed. And, you know, just as our experiences as Aboriginal people are, when we walk out, when I'm in this country, I know of the Gadigal, you know, I know of the creation story, but I can only know of it if it's been told to me.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's what a tremendous thing, and the power that the tool that is reconciliation. If we're able to work in reciprocality with our First Peoples of these countries and encourage the teachers to learn from the peoples of that country and the students, so that when they walk out that door of their institution, they hear those birds, they know those sounds, they connect, they have a understanding. They might not know it through DNA, in a sense of connection to country, but they have a knowing of this place, you know?
For sure, yeah. And that's, you know, that's a beautiful thing. And then, you know, you can take that and use that across all different cultures, you know. In your classroom, I'm sure you've got all different cultures of students. And, you know, if they see the importance in delivering Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures in the classroom, then they're going to see the importance and value of pursuing their own interests in their own culture too. So works hand in hand.
Yes, it develops a curiosity in one's own cultural development and their experience with it.
Yeah, for sure.
Look, we've gone a little bit over time, but let's just squish one more question in. Is that all right with you, Thomas?
Sure.
We're black fellas. We take our time. Too bad. Do you have any examples on how you would teach how you would teach and approach the difficult parts of history with very young audiences? Very interesting question. Very good question.
Very, very good question. I think the space that we would start off by is by looking at artists that talk about those ideas in their work, in, you know, people like Yoni Scarce and Jonathan Jones, artists like that, you know, where they're creating these overwhelming, gorgeous works. But then when you actually start sort of researching into them, there's, you know, the dark history, there's the layers. And so I think that's where I would start, you know, by looking at artists who explore those ideas directly. You know, they're directly confronting those ideas, like people like Tony Albert as well, for example. But, you know, get around some of those artists who are looking at those ideas, because there's so many resources on those artists as well. We have some too. Every gallery has them. And, you know, I'm sure within those resources, they all have sort of making and responding activities in response to that artist's work. But I think, you know, having those difficult conversations about, you know, those horrible things in the past, it's always going to be hard to have that sort of conversation, you know. But I think if you can do it through the curiosity of looking at an artist's work, then I guess it sort of softens the blow in a way, I think.
And it's just as challenging for our peoples to hear these stories.
Exactly, for sure. And that's why this sort of learning needs to happen from a young age, you know, even if they're, you know, just looking at the artwork and exploring it aesthetically, you know, start off like that and then, you know, just work your way, sort of baby steps. And that's why you can look at this sort of stuff constantly throughout, you know, every single year and just develop, you know. It's no rush to jump in and have that sort of conversation, but you can develop it over time, you know, a few terms work, and yeah.
Thomas, thank you so much for encouraging people to do what we do when we experience cultural and artistic expression, which is, what does this subjectively mean to me? And what is this saying from the artist? And what is that relationship between those two things?
Yeah.
I'm really encouraged that you've encouraged and helped people understand that they can take steps, they can look at resources, go to your local peoples and ask these peoples, ask them what would they do?
Exactly. 100%. And thank you so much, Ian, for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with you guys. And thank you to everybody listening as well. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you got something out of it.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And thank you for the Swinny interpreting, who've been so wonderful to help us. Yeah. And I would like to pay my deep respects. And I'm sure that my people have stood in front of your peoples before, as we've discussed, to the Nirranjeri and the Aranda people, and to acknowledge your ancestrals and your cultural knowledge, and pay respects to the country that you're streaming from, the Ghana people, and any of the other countries that are streaming in from today. Thomas, a pleasure, a delight. Thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to the opportunity of seeing you very soon, my brother.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you, everyone.